Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Pod, where we help you improve your English step by step. My name is Erica. Today, we're diving into a question that so many of you have asked us: how to understand fast English. And remember, vocabulary, words, and definitions awaits you at the end of our podcast. Understanding fast English. Today, we're discussing a common challenge for many learners: understanding spoken English when it's fast. Have you ever tried watching a movie or listening to a conversation in English, but the words seem to blend together, making it difficult to follow? You might catch a few phrases, but most of it feels impossible to understand. If this happens to you, don't worry. The reason English sounds fast isn't because you're not good at it. It's because native speakers naturally connect words, simplify sounds, and speak in a way that isn't taught in textbooks. The good news is that you can train your ears to understand natural English. In this episode, we'll explore why English seems so fast, how native speakers actually speak, effective techniques to improve listening skills. By the end of this lesson, you'll feel more confident when listening to English, even at a natural speed. If this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any lessons. Stay with us until the end, where we'll share some useful exercises to help you get better at understanding spoken English. Let's begin. Why does English seem so fast? Now let's discuss why English feels much faster than other languages. Many learners feel that native speakers talk extremely quickly. However, English isn't necessarily spoken at a higher speed. It only sounds that way due to the way words connect, sounds change, and certain syllables are emphasized while others are weakened. There are three main reasons English can be difficult to follow. First, words are often joined together in speech, making them sound like one continuous sound rather than separate words. Instead of pronouncing each word individually, native speakers link them naturally in conversation. Second, common words and phrases are often shortened in everyday speech. Instead of pronouncing every syllable clearly, native speakers reduce sounds, making sentences flow more smoothly, but also making it harder for learners to catch every word. Third, not all words are stressed equally. Some words in a sentence are emphasized, while others are spoken quickly and softly, making them seem less noticeable. This rhythm makes English sound fast and sometimes unclear to learners. If you struggle to keep up with spoken English, it's not because your skills are weak. It's simply because natural speech is different from the structured sentences found in textbooks. Next, we'll look at the specific features that make spoken English sound different from what learners expect. Features of fast English. Now that we understand why English sounds fast to learners, let's take a deeper look at the specific characteristics of natural spoken English. These features make everyday speech smoother, faster, and more fluid. But they also create challenges for those who are used to learning English from textbooks or structured lessons. There are three key aspects of fast English: connected speech, word reductions, and dropped sounds. Each of these plays a role in making spoken English different from written English and contributes to the difficulty learners experience when trying to understand native speakers. 1. Connected speech, the flow of words. One of the biggest reasons English sounds fast is that native speakers do not pronounce words separately. Instead, they connect words together in a continuous stream of sound. This happens because English has a natural rhythm that encourages smooth transitions between words. Rather than pausing after each word, speakers adjust their pronunciation so that words blend into each other. This means that individual words may lose their distinct sounds, making them harder to recognize. The connection between words happens naturally and is an essential part of fluent speech. Connected speech also plays a role in maintaining the natural intonation and stress patterns of English. It helps speech flow more easily and reduces effort for the speaker. However, for learners who expect clear, isolated words, this blending of sounds can make it difficult to identify where one word ends and the next begins. Because of connected speech, spoken English can feel much faster than written English, even if the speaker is not actually speaking at a very high speed. The way words merge together gives the impression that sentences are being spoken in one long, uninterrupted phrase rather than as separate words. Two-word reductions, simplified pronunciation in everyday speech. Another key feature of fast English is the reduction of common words and phrases. In natural conversation, speakers do not always pronounce every syllable fully. Instead, they shorten words, soften sounds, and simplify pronunciation to make speech more efficient. This happens for several reasons. First, everyday communication is meant to be quick and effortless. By reducing certain words, speakers can express their thoughts more fluidly without slowing down. Second, the rhythm of English naturally encourages some words to be unstressed and spoken more softly, which often leads to changes in their pronunciation. These reductions make speech sound much more natural, but they also create difficulties for learners who expect to hear words as they are written. Instead of hearing clearly separated words, learners encounter compressed and altered forms that are not always immediately recognizable. While word reductions are most common in informal speech, they also appear in professional and academic settings. Even in formal situations, speakers naturally adjust their pronunciation to maintain a smooth and natural speaking rhythm. This means that learners need to become familiar with these reductions in order to fully understand spoken English in any context. 3. Dropped sounds. The disappearance of certain letters and syllables. In addition to connected speech and word reductions, another feature of fast English is the disappearance of certain sounds in casual speech. When speaking quickly, native speakers do not always pronounce every letter or syllable clearly. Instead, they simplify pronunciation by softening or completely dropping certain sounds. This process happens because some sounds require more effort to pronounce than others, especially in rapid conversation. To make speech smoother and more efficient, speakers naturally omit sounds that are not essential for understanding. Dropped sounds contribute to the rhythmic quality of English, allowing speakers to maintain a steady flow of speech without unnecessary pauses. This is why fluent English often sounds much more continuous and connected than the clear, carefully enunciated speech that learners encounter in formal lessons. For learners, dropped sounds can be one of the biggest challenges in understanding fast English. When letters or syllables disappear, words may sound unfamiliar, even if they are words the learner already knows. This can make spoken English feel unpredictable, since the way a word is pronounced in casual conversation may be different from how it appears in writing. How these features work together. The combination of connected speech, word reductions, and dropped sounds creates the impression that English is spoken much faster than it actually is. Rather than hearing clearly defined words, learners encounter a continuous stream of sound where words merge, change, and sometimes even disappear. These features are not separate from one another. They work together to create the natural rhythm of spoken English. A single sentence may include elements of all three, making it difficult for learners to recognize individual words. This is why understanding fast English requires more than just knowing vocabulary and grammar. It requires training the ear to recognize the patterns of natural speech. Because these features are an essential part of fluent English, they appear in every type of spoken communication, from casual conversations to professional discussions. Even when speakers slow down, they still use connected speech, reductions, and dropped sounds to maintain a natural rhythm. This is why learners often find that they can understand written English but struggle to follow real conversations. Once learners become familiar with these features, however, spoken English becomes much easier to follow. Instead of trying to hear each word separately, they begin to recognize the natural flow of English and anticipate how words will sound in real conversations. How to improve listening skills. Understanding fast English requires more than just knowing vocabulary and grammar. Since spoken English is full of connected speech, word reductions, and dropped sounds, learners must train their ears to recognize these patterns and process speech more efficiently. Developing strong listening skills is a gradual process that involves exposure, active engagement, and consistent practice. Improving listening skills is not about memorizing more words or learning complex grammar rules. Instead, it's about adjusting the way the brain processes spoken language. Learners need to shift from expecting clear textbook pronunciation to recognizing the natural flow of spoken English. This involves training the brain to recognize entire phrases rather than individual words, anticipate common sound changes, and focus on meaning rather than specific details. To make this process easier, learners should follow a structured approach that gradually increases their ability to process spoken English at a natural speed. This includes adjusting to different speeds of speech, using multiple senses to reinforce understanding, imitating natural pronunciation, learning to focus on essential words, and making listening a daily habit. 1. Adjusting to different speeds of speech. One of the biggest challenges for learners is the sudden jump from slow, clear pronunciation in textbooks to the fast, fluid speech of native speakers. Many learners find that they can understand English when spoken slowly, but struggle when the pace increases. This happens because the brain needs time to process unfamiliar sounds, especially when words are linked together in rapid conversation. To bridge this gap, learners should gradually expose themselves to different speeds of speech. Instead of immediately trying to understand native speakers at full speed, they can start by listening to slightly slower versions of real speech and then gradually increase the speed over time. This allows the brain to adjust to the rhythm and flow of English without becoming overwhelmed. With regular exposure, the brain becomes more efficient at processing natural speech. Over time, words that once seemed unclear start to sound familiar, and sentences that once felt too fast become easier to follow. 2. Using multiple senses to reinforce understanding. Listening is not just about hearing words, it also involves processing meaning, recognizing patterns, and predicting what comes next. One of the most effective ways to improve listening comprehension is to combine listening with reading to reinforce understanding. By following along with written text while listening, learners can connect the sounds they hear with the words they already know. This helps them recognize how words are pronounced in natural speech, how they blend together, and how certain sounds change. As learners become more familiar with spoken English, they will begin to recognize common patterns without needing visual support. Eventually, they will be able to understand speech naturally, even when they are listening without written text. 3. Imitating natural pronunciation. One of the most effective ways to improve listening skills is to imitate the way native speakers talk. Listening is not just a passive activity, It's also about developing an awareness of how sounds are produced and connected in real speech. By repeating words and phrases exactly as they are spoken, learners train their ears to recognize patterns that they might not notice otherwise. When learners repeat sentences at the same speed and rhythm as native speakers, they become more comfortable with the natural flow of English. This makes it easier to predict what words will sound like in conversation, allowing them to understand fast speech more easily. Imitating natural pronunciation also helps learners internalize common reductions and sound changes, so they no longer expect every word to be pronounced separately. Over time, this allows them to process speech more quickly and understand spoken English with greater accuracy. 4. Learning to focus on essential words. Many learners struggle with fast English because they try to process every single word. However, native speakers do not pronounce every word clearly, and not every word is equally important for understanding. Instead of trying to hear everything, learners should focus on recognizing the most important words in a sentence. English is a stress-timed language, which means that certain words are naturally emphasized, while others are spoken more quickly and softly. By learning to identify these key words, learners can understand the overall meaning of a sentence. Even if they do not catch every small detail, training the brain to focus on essential words allows learners to process speech faster and with less effort. Instead of getting stuck on missing words, they can follow the conversation more smoothly and respond more naturally. 5. Making listening a daily habit. Developing strong listening skills is not something that happens overnight. It requires consistent exposure and practice. The more frequently learners listen to English, the easier it becomes to process spoken language. Even just a few minutes a day can make a significant difference over time. By making listening a regular habit, learners can train their brains to recognize speech patterns automatically. Instead of struggling to understand individual words, they will begin to recognize entire phrases and sentence structures without needing to think about them. Regular listening practice also helps learners become more comfortable with different accents, speech styles, and conversation speeds. This is essential for building confidence and understanding English in real-life situations. How these techniques work together. Each of these strategies plays a crucial role in improving listening skills. Adjusting to different speeds helps learners transition from slow, clear speech to natural conversation. Using multiple senses reinforces understanding and makes it easier to recognize speech patterns. Imitating natural pronunciation trains the brain to process sounds more efficiently. Focusing on key words allows learners to keep up with fast speech without getting overwhelmed. Making listening a daily habit ensures continuous improvement and long-term success. By combining these techniques, learners can train their ears to process spoken English more naturally and efficiently. Instead of feeling lost when listening to native speakers, they will begin to recognize patterns, anticipate sounds, and understand speech at a faster pace. Over time, what once seemed like a blur of words will start to make sense, and learners will gain the confidence to engage in real conversations without feeling frustrated. Daily practice exercises. To improve your ability to understand spoken English, here are some simple exercises you can do regularly. First, try listening to a short audio clip and see how much you can understand. Then, listen again while reading a transcript or subtitles. Finally, listen a third time without subtitles to test yourself. Another useful exercise is repeating sentences immediately after hearing them. Copy the speaker's pronunciation and speed as closely as possible to help your brain get used to fast speech. Summarizing what you hear in your own words is also a great way to improve listening comprehension. Instead of focusing on every small detail, try to understand the general idea and express it in simple terms. Practicing these techniques every day, even for a few minutes, will make a big difference in your ability to understand fast English. We've covered a lot of useful tips today, from why English sounds fast to practical methods for improving your listening skills. The most important thing to remember is that understanding spoken English takes practice. At first, it may feel challenging, but with time and consistent effort, it will become easier. As a challenge, try using one of the techniques we discussed for the next few days. Whether it's slowing down audio, repeating sentences, or summarizing what you hear, choose one method and practice it regularly. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with other learners. Keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next episode.